hours of the day before eventually lifting. Not everyone will see the fog. There'll be some sunshine out there from the word go. Areas of cloud affecting parts of Wales into northern England. Rain just fringing upon Cumbria as we begin things, but it's wettest across western Scotland, Northern Ireland and northern Scotland first thing. Actually, the morning is the wettest period because the rain does tend to ease a little into the afternoon. It's not going to disappear entirely, but we end up with on and off mostly light rain for Northern Ireland and for much of Scotland, particularly towards western parts. Eastern and northern Scotland turning brighter with actually still some warmth here. The warmest air will be towards the south where we see some sunshine after those mist patches, 20 or 21 Celsius possible. Thursday then starts in a similar fashion with clear spells and some mist patches in the south, heavy rain across northern parts of the UK, and that rain really is going to accumulate across much of Northern Ireland and Scotland, particularly western Scotland. A rain warning in force, risk of localised flooding by the time we get to Friday.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Currently, the M8 is closed eastbound at junction 22, and the westbound carriageway is also experiencing significant restrictions due to hazardous weather conditions. Travellers are strongly advised to seek alternative routes as considerable delays are expected. On the railways, disruptions are continuing to affect the London North Western Railway services between Watford Junction and Milton Keynes Central, which may lead to potential cancellations and further inconvenience. Furthermore, London Overground services are experiencing operational issues affecting routes between Peckham Rye and Dalston Junction, causing delays. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benimar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod funds you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. An obsessive Labour conference centring around myself and reform, with repeated attacks and the use of the word racism. I wonder, is this Keir Starmer's desperate last throw of the dice given his level of unpopularity? Very interesting. Since I was last with you, the digital ID plans have been out. Andy Burnham has come out strongly against them. Makes me ask, can Starmer even get this through the House of Commons? That'll depend, I guess, on the Liberal Democrats. And Trump Blair, is there going to be peace in Gaza? Are Hamas going to accept a peace plan? We'll discuss that and much more after the news with Sam Francis.
Very good evening to you from the newsroom just after 7 o'clock. The top story tonight. Sir Keir Starmer has vowed that Labour will take the fight to reform UK, telling his party conference in Liverpool earlier that Britain faces a choice between renewal or decline. The Prime Minister singled out Nigel Farage as his principal opponent, accusing him of having no faith in Britain.
If you say or imply that people cannot be English or British because of the colour of their skin, that mixed heritage families owe you an explanation, that people who've lived here for generations, raised their children here, built their lives here, working in our schools, our hospitals, running businesses, are our neighbours. If you say they should now be deported, then mark my words, we will fight you with everything we have, because you are the enemy of national renewal.
Well, Mr Farage has since responded, claiming Sir Keir Starmer's comments are, he says, an absolute disgrace. He also says the Prime Minister is inciting and encouraging the radical left, directly threatening the safety of Reform UK campaigners. Well, Sir Keir Starmer mentioned Nigel Farage 4 times in his speech, but not once mentioned Tory leader Kemi Badenoch. She has hit back, comparing Starmer and Farage to 2 boys squabbling in the playground. She says voters don't want point scoring, they want answers.
The policies which the Prime Minister himself has brought out are very similar to what we have said on indefinite leave to remain, ILR. Reform has also copied our policies. Controlling borders is not racist. Immigration is very high. We need to control our borders. As Conservatives, we know mistakes were made. That's why we've really toughened up our policy. But if you cannot criticise a policy for flaws and you start using labels as racist, I don't think people will take him seriously.
So what did Sir Keir Starmer pledge in that speech? Well, first, a shift from Tony Blair's university target, with 2/3 of young people encouraged to pursue either higher education or gold standard apprenticeships. On migration, he admitted Labour will face uncomfortable choices, saying the party once patronised working people and had to change. And with the budget looming, Sir Keir Starmer also warned that tough decisions will keep coming, but promised never to lose control of the economy. Turning to the United States, where Donald Trump is pushing what he calls an amazing Gaza peace plan, giving Hamas just 3 to 4 days to respond. That 20-point deal would end fighting, free hostages and set up an international board of peace to run Gaza. It also promises a pathway to Palestinian statehood through Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. He says Israel will forcibly resist it. Qatar says Hamas is reviewing the proposal responsibly, but it may take days before they reply. Donald Trump, meanwhile, insists Arab nations and Israel are already on board, warning it would be a very sad end if Hamas walks away. Here, 2 new COVID strains dubbed Stratus and Nimbus are now the most common variants spreading across the UK. Doctors say they don't appear to cause more severe illness, but genetic changes, they say, could make infections easier to catch. Telltale symptoms include a so-called razor blade sore throat or hoarse voice, alongside headaches, coughs and fatigue. Hospital admissions are reportedly rising, especially among the very young and the elderly, prompting calls to get winter vaccines. And returning to the United States, prosecutors there are calling for Sean Diddy Combs to serve more than 11 years in prison after his conviction on prostitution-related charges. In a court filing, they demanded at least 135 months behind bars and $500,000 in fines. The 55-year-old music mogul faces up to 20 years when he's sentenced on Friday this week. A jury in July found him guilty of transporting male prostitutes across state lines, but cleared him of racketeering and sex trafficking. Combs has pleaded not guilty to all charges and is expected to appeal. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you for a full roundup at 8. Now, though, it's over to Farage.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Well, it's been Labour conference week, their second conference in power, having won that massive majority at the general election. And I imagined it was going to be a week when they'd talk about their achievements in government, their plans for the future. We didn't hear all that much of those. But it all began on Sunday morning on the BBC when Keir Starmer was asked a question about our policy on indefinite leave to remain. This is what he said.
Well, I do think that it's a racist policy. I do think it's immoral. It needs to be called out for what it is.
Now, I don't know whether he'd planned to come out and use the racist word or not, or whether it was just a response to a question. It seemed to me he was pretty unsure of himself when he was saying that. Either way, once that was out of the bag, they decided as a party to go with it all week, despite the fact that the very next day, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, put forward her own proposals to tackle indefinite leave to remain. But having let the cat out of the bag, they continued all week. Here was Chancellor Rachel Reeves.
Those people have got every right to be in this country, and the idea that they would be deported just because they weren't born here, I believe that policy is racist. I believe that policy is wrong.
Well, clearly it's racist to think that benefits should only be for British nationals. But there we are. And David Lammy, never one to miss out on such things, he joined into.
He must call his scheme to round up and deport our French, our Indian, our Caribbean neighbours who already have indefinite leave to remain what it is. It is racist.
Well, what we have learnt this week, even from the Home Secretary, is that the Boris wave will not be denied indefinite leave to remain. Somewhere between 1 and 2 million people will be given, over the course of the next 3 years, indefinite leave to remain. It means once they get it, they'll all be entitled to a life on benefits. They'll all be entitled to bring dependents. But there you are. Now, I just have to sort of inject a lighter note into all of this, and that was the Mac cartoon on the front page of today's Daily Telegraph. 2 delegates leaving the Labour conference, and one says to the other, next year, I'm going to the Reform conference. They don't spend the whole time talking about Nigel Farage. I thought that was absolutely brilliant, and I'm going to buy the original and put it up on the wall. But I wonder, is the big speech that we got today from the Prime Minister, is the repeated use of the word racist, what does it all mean? Well, I don't mind personal insults. I'm big enough and ugly enough to take them. But I do think on this, the Prime Minister and the Cabinet have sunk into the gutter. And I think what they've done is insightful and dangerous. And I say that especially in the wake of the murder of my friend Charlie Kirk just 3 weeks ago. He was called lots of nasty names. And we've already had a situation of violent attacks on Reform supporters, and I really worry this will embolden the radical left. It will embolden those who wear face masks and are quite prepared to use violence. And I think, frankly, what the Prime Minister has done is a total disgrace. I hope he wakes up tomorrow and he's ashamed of himself. That is my opinion. I believe it very strongly. But I wonder, is sinking to this, is this the last throw of the dice of a Prime Minister who politically is in more trouble than any Prime Minister has been at this stage of their premiership in modern times? Let me know. Is this the last throw? Tweet hashtag Farage on GB News or email farage@gbnews.com. Now, I hope I'm joined down the line by Lord Glasman, Labour peer and founder of Blue Labour. Morris, good evening. Welcome to the programme. Just to begin, I think you were quite happy.
Good evening, Nigel.
Good evening. You were quite happy with what the Home Secretary had to say.
Oh, very. But first of all, before we go any further, I'm very proud to be Labour, and I'm very ashamed about the accusation of calling you a racist. I am going around this conference and I'll be writing articles absolutely disputing that. I know, Nigel, that you are not a racist. I know that you spend a huge amount of your time expelling racists from Reform. So please accept my personal apology, not from the party but from me, and I'm honoured to be on GB News. I'm honoured, actually, to think of you as a friend. So that's a disgrace to me as well.
Thank you, Morris, for that. Now, we don't agree on everything, but thank you for that very much indeed. But I mean, what I was expecting to hear from this conference were the big plans for the future. And it seems to me we heard press as few. The Home Secretary talked about indefinite leave to remain in much the same way that I'd talked about it the week before. But now we learn that actually she's dropping it for the Boris wave. So what does it all really mean?
OK, so what I would say, Nigel, is that Shabana Mahmood is a great blessing for our country. She's a Muslim woman who's genuinely patriotic, and she's also very tough. Did you notice last week there was the Eritrean guy who claimed to be a victim of modern slavery and they blocked the deportation? She got it done on Thursday. She is actually very resolute, and I would say that she's a definite ally, and she's also very strong for Brexit. So that's one thing. So I think that there's a confusion at the heart of the government at the moment. How can you have Shabana Mahmood as the Home Secretary, who's very resolute and of whom I would say that you should basically support her appointment and her position, and at the same time have Herma as Attorney General, who's completely bound up with the human rights laws. So what happened today, there was one significant thing, which in Labour terms is hugely significant, Nigel, which is, and I'm sorry I can't see you, so sorry I can't make eye contact, is that what they said was they dropped the 50% to university and actually made a turn. Now, I'm in favour of closing down half the universities and turning them into vocational colleges. I used to be laughed at, I used to be mocked. Now it looks like that's edging towards government policy. So there was some stuff on that, you know, and the necessity of public sector reform was actually part of the scene. These are all things I very much support.
But Maurice, I'm on the university stuff. You know, I've been saying this since the year 2000. You and I agree on that totally.
Exactly.
Final thought.
Totally.
This Prime Minister has the worst popularity ratings of any Prime Minister since we were tracking this back in 1977. Does, in your opinion, anything he's done this week turn that round, or will he find that using the racist word actually backfires on him?
Oh, totally. This is completely mistaken. And when I apologise to you for what he said, I don't only mean that personally. It's politically ridiculous. It's like saying that all the many millions of people who are looking to reform as the hope of the country are racist. This is insane, Nigel. So no, he deserves to be punished for what he said, as we always deserve to be punished. The point you made about we've got to reconcile. I make every effort in the world to talk to you on GB, to respect you, because that's the way we do politics in this country, and I will always condemn any deviation from that.
Maurice, many thanks indeed. I'm joined in the studio by Sebastian Salek, Labour councillor for Waltham Forest. Well, that was quite a strong condemnation of what the Prime Minister said, but let's face it, the whole Cabinet were saying that this week. Is it useful, in your opinion, for Labour to describe our policies as racist?
I'm glad you said our policies, or your policies, because we have to correct the inaccuracies. I have a lot of time for Lord Glassman, I have a lot of respect for him, but to say that you are racist or that Reform voters are racist, nobody's saying that. They are specifically going after the policy, and that, I think, is where they have a point.
Hang on a second. If the policy is racist... if the millions that believe in the policy, and millions really believe in our policies, particularly on channel migrants being detained and deported, particularly on benefits, you know, 1 in 6 now on universal credit are foreign-born. If those that support those policies, therefore, must be racist too. That's purely logical.
So we've got to talk about that. The proportion of people who are foreign on benefits is proportionate with the number of foreign-born people in the country. So there is not a disproportionate.
There shouldn't be any on
people.
benefits.
Of course there should be. These are people who are our friends, our neighbours. They come here to work,
we should pay for them.
Sometimes they fall on hard times. So we have to make sure they can get back on their feet, like any worker paying taxes in Britain should have that right. These are not people who are coming to game the system and to live off benefits. That simply is not happening. We have to dispel that myth.
Well, I tell you what, the Boris wave is coming. The Boris wave is coming. Many of them don't work, have never worked, will never work. It's a massive burden. Anyway, let's get back to the main point. The main point is, do you think that and they've used this word, every cabinet minister's used it, they're clearly going to go on using it, will it benefit Labour?
Do you know what? I think it will, because what we're seeing here from Keir Starmer is a bit of honesty. And I think it's something that people have been wanting to see from him for a little while. He's tried a few approaches on immigration. I think not all of them he got right. And he's now going for an approach of say what you think. And it's something that you do, and it's something that you do really successfully. You say what you think. And I'm pleased to see him doing it as well.
I do, but I don't think I'd sink to those depths, frankly.
I don't think so.
I don't. I mean, I might attack people's policies. I might tease people. I don't go for personal abuse. I'm joined by panel regulars Joe Phillips and Ranald Jayawardena. Joe, you know, you've watched attacks and counter-attacks from parties. It strikes me that going down this line of attack is actually an act of desperation.
Well, I don't agree, and I think what Sebastian said is absolutely right. You've got to take away the policy from the person.
You can't.
Yes, of course you can.
The millions of us support this policy. Therefore, if we support this policy, you can't condemn the policy without condemning those that support it.
Can you? You can have a conversation. It's not a word that I would use at all.
Right. So is he right to use it?
I think it was a mistake. I think it was ill thought out, and it's a shame that other people then followed suit. I think Shabana Mahmood was much cleverer and much smarter in what she said, that reforms policies are not racist. They are more nuanced and more dangerous than that. And I think actually what she said...
Yes, I mean, in fact, Rachel Reeves said, we're the biggest threat the country faces.
Well, the other thing that I would...
You'd have thought we're about to be invaded.
But, you know,
well, perhaps we are.
We talk about the Boris wave. Why did we get the Boris wave? Because of Brexit. Why did we get Brexit? Well, Nigel,
No. The Boris wave, we were completely in control of. Nothing to do with Brexit at all. A government choice. Ranald, you know, you've been there in the front lines. Attacks going back and forth. This is pretty extreme stuff from Labour.
It's a desperate attempt to try and rescue his premiership. You know, he's had, you know, repeated scandals, you know, Mandelson, Rayner, McSweeney. He's presided, along with Rachel Reeves, over an economy that sadly is in a really difficult situation right now, which is affecting millions of people across this country. And it's, you know, it's just an attempt to try and wrestle back some support from his core voter base. You know,
and isn't it funny, with party conferences, you know, and you're both veterans of them, as indeed am I, when it's a party conference, it's being televised, but who are you talking to?
Your base.
Are you talking to your base, or are you talking to a wider country? Because the base of a Labour Party conference I'm going to come to you in a minute, Sebastian, will tend to be to the left of the average Labour voter.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether that's what this was really all about.
I think that's exactly right. Well, given that he's facing challenges from Andy Burnham and who knows who else, Ed Miliband is rumoured to be plotting behind the scenes to get that left-wing parliamentary party support. You know, he's trying to shore up his base, and it's a desperate attempt. It's not going to work.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, both of you, that it is always, you know, you're addressing several audiences. You know, only a bit was going to be used on the news. The people in the, you know, party faithful in the conference hall. Apparently Andy Burnham had already left and gone home, so he wasn't there to hear it.
That's a shame, isn't it?
Well, maybe he's decided that it's best to carry on doing an excellent job running Manchester. But I think the other thing is that, you know, I think it's a real mistake for any political party to look at one particular group of people. So if Labour sees that the biggest threat to them is people following you and joining Reform. What about the people who are leaving Labour, who are going to the Greens under their new leader, or the Liberal Democrats?
And they've got big dilemmas on both sides of this. No, I agree with that. Final thoughts. You were there.
Yeah.
You were there. Has this conference done Labour any good?
I think that speech will turn things around. There was a lot of pressure on that speech to be good. There was a lot of pressure on Starmer to show that he's the man who can carry on leading us through. And I think he's got through. Even his internal critics are being complimentary about him. That's really positive. He's bought himself a bit of space. I would deny the claim that he's talking to his base, though. I looked at some polling from YouGov. 46% of people say that reform policies are generally racist. That is a mainstream opinion. That is a mainstream opinion, and it's a problem. And far be it from me to give you advice. You know what you're doing. But that is not something that's going to wash with people.
Well, maybe you're right. Maybe we should just open the doors and let millions more in and you can all pay for it. Thank you, everybody, for that. From 6 a.m. tomorrow, the Prime Minister will sit down with GB News political editor Christopher Hope, covering all the major issues from the Labour Party conference, and we'll see what he has to say about all of this. Excellent. In a minute, we're going to talk digital ID cards. I can't think of anything more horrendous. Interestingly, Andy Burnham seems to take the same view.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I asked you, is this the last throw of the dice from a desperate Prime Minister? Jane says, I think it is clearly. Labour are running scared when they make personal attacks like this, including David Lammy's bizarre suggestion on the BBC earlier, which he quickly backtracked on, which I didn't even mention because, frankly, it was beneath contempt. Maya says, Starmer and Labour are finished. Resorting to personal attacks is the last refuge of someone who's lost the argument. Now, since I was last with you, the government's plans for digital ID have been unveiled. It's something that's been wanted, of course, going back to Tony Blair's time. It's just that now, of course, with technology, the cards would be far, well, in fact, they wouldn't even be cards. It would all be on your phone. We're told it's to stop illegal immigration, but then I've filmed them 12 miles from Dover, chucking their passports and iPhones in the sea. So that argument doesn't work at all. But the argument they think is going to work with you is that if we have digital ID, it will stop illegal working. Well, I've got a bit of a shock, perhaps for all of you. If you are a foreign national and you want to work in this country, and you go to an employer, the employer legally has to ask you for your share code, which comes in a digital form on your app, on your phone, and legally, you as a foreign worker have to give it to the employer, and the employer has to take it from you before you can be taken on. We already have digital ID for foreign workers. This will make no difference at all. By definition, if you're working illegally, you are working illegally. So because the government can't control our borders, because the government has absolutely no control over the massive illegal economy, we have to potentially all lose our freedoms. I am totally against this. We saw a specimen of this, did we not, during the pandemic, when we had to prove whether we'd been jabbed, and there were two types of citizen created. The reason for it was that if you hadn't been jabbed, you could pass on the virus, but if you had been jabbed, you couldn't, which was, as we learnt later, a complete and utter lie. It was not true in any way at all. And, you know, we might say, look, British governments would never misuse digital ID. Well, what if we got a government that really was extreme? What if we got a government that decided whole groups of people were actually their enemies? I think this is the most illiberal thing that could ever be proposed. I don't see any possible benefit from it. And the fact that Tony Blair is still behind the whole thing and those close to him might benefit from it makes me even more determined. What is the Liberal position, Joe, or your position on this? Because the Liberal Democrats on this will be crucial.
Yes, and I think it's very mixed. I've always been opposed to ID cards for all the reasons that we all know about invasion of privacy. But I do think, given that we all give so much of our personal information away over 24 hours of every day, you know, where's your car parked? What did you buy at the supermarket? What your cat eats?
We don't give it to the government.
We don't give it to the government. We give it to commercial companies. But we also give information when we go on the NHS app to do repeat prescriptions or something like that. So yes, you could argue we're giving it to the government. And I do think there is something to be said if it speeds up and makes it easier and better. If you take away the thing about illegal working...
But that's why they're doing it.
Yes, I know it is. But there's also another thing, which is about benefits, which it could be used quite usefully to see who's on what benefits and what they're getting. Because at the moment, you can apply for PIP over the phone or online, which is quite bonkers, and it would have been the first...
You're not worried about the level of hacks? I mean, the level of hacks against commercial companies, the stealing of data...
Yes, of course, there are an awful lot of things that aren't perfect about it, but in terms of am I completely and utterly opposed to it, no, I can see some benefits from it.
Well,
but I do think it needs to be thought through properly, and what I think there would be an absolute outcry about is that any idea that any of us walking down the street would be...
Well, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. On the politics of this, really interesting. I sort of assumed that the Labour movement would get behind it, but no, I saw Richard Bergen the other day come out against it. This was Andy Burnham. Yes, Andy Burnham, yesterday.
Digital ID, yes or no?
Not now.
Well, there was Andy Burnham being spectacularly helpful once again at this Labour conference. I don't know, Ranor. I mean, the last Labour government pushed very hard for this. In the end, they gave up on it. What do you think, A, about the politics of it, and B, the principle?
Well, we're just not a papers-please country, and I certainly don't want us to be one. And, the last time that we had anything of this sort was in the Second World War.
And afterwards. And it was dropped.
And it was dropped, because that's just not the sort of country we are. We believe in the freedom of people to live their own lives, not having to report to the government every single hour of every single day, which a digital ID would do in a way that a paper ID could never have done way back when. And so I think it's right that this should be opposed in Parliament. I hope that many MPs on all sides will oppose this, because it's also, as you've said, it's not going to solve the problem that they're seeking to fix. This is another distraction.
So what would you do to solve that problem then?
I'm sorry to be a broken record, I'd bring back the Rwanda scheme, but we can talk about that on another day.
But to solve the problem...
Illegal working is illegal working. And unless you have squads of people out going around cracking down, you won't stop it.
But so the truth is, the people who are working here illegally are people who are often claiming asylum or failed asylum seekers. This is my point around offshore processing. But actually, there's a bigger thing here, which, it's a distraction from the fact that the government's IT, over decades, simply does not work. And the idea that we're going to spend another huge amount of money, millions, if not billions of pounds, on another IT project, I mean, this is another way to grow an even bigger black hole for Rachel Reeves to have to fill at the budget, putting up taxes on everyone.
Well, I was really shocked with the first lockdown, but the second and third lockdowns amazed me. I was amazed how compliant we as a country were. I wasn't. But I don't think... I think this time the level of opposition would be huge.
Well, I think it probably would. And I think, it's easy to forget, I think, how very frightened people were during that first wave. And I think the pictures that we were seeing from Italian hospitals overwhelmed with dead bodies and the dithering of Boris Johnson. And, for anybody like me who'd got somebody working in the health service, my son's a paramedic, or people who'd got people in care homes or who were immunocompromised, we were frightened. And I think, however many mistakes the government made at the time, they probably did in the first bit the best they could.
So in the first bit, I think...
But too late.
Well, the first bit, as you say, we can relitigate all this stuff, but, the first bit, people were scared, and so people accepted the idea of IDs on their phones and so on.
But not in 2021.
No, exactly. People began to say, hang on, this is not on. And actually, if you look at the wider COVID measures, if you look at Sweden, actually they did very little. They allowed people to police themselves,
there was no
which proves you don't need these sorts of systems.
And then you had to eat out to spread the disease.
Do you agree with me that the level of non-compliance on this would shock the government?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, people are not going to have this. In fact, people will downgrade from smartphones to brick phones to have to be able to opt out.
I think they could be in for a shock.
Well, there you are. Then you've solved the problem of people being on social media. Well,
there we are. There we are. See, we're told all the time we need to spend less time on our digital devices, our mobile phones, yet the government wants us to live by them. There we are. In a moment, we talk the wealth exodus. It's real.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Torrential rain at the moment across parts of Spain. That will be easing from the Valencia area. Meanwhile, some heavy rain across parts of southern Italy during Wednesday, particularly over Sicily. And some scattered showers too, likely across the Balkans. 1 or 2 showers over Greece. Most of the Greek islands, though, dry, fine and sunny, and plenty of sunshine in Turkey as well. The odd shower cropping up in Santorini as we head through Friday. Some sunshine returning to Rome. Goodbye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Clear spells will remain by and large across England and Wales overnight, but it will be much cloudier further north across Scotland and Northern Ireland with increasingly heavy and persistent rain arriving. That's because this next frontal system that moves in is more active than the weak fronts we've seen during the last couple of days. So soon enough, during the evening, heavy rain arrives across Northern Ireland into western Scotland, and it's going to persist throughout much of the night. But for much of England and Wales, there'll be some patchy cloud around, particularly towards the west, but in between, clear spells, lighter winds here, and so a similar night to previous nights with temperatures falling into the single figures and some mist and fog forming, particularly south of the M4 corridor. That's what we wake up to on Wednesday, some patchy mist and fog. It will last for the first few hours of the day before eventually lifting. Not everyone will see the fog. There'll be some sunshine out there from the word go. Areas of cloud affecting parts of Wales into northern England. Rain just fringing upon Cumbria as we begin things, but it's wettest across western Scotland, Northern Ireland and northern Scotland first thing. Actually, the morning is the wettest period because the rain does tend to ease a little into the afternoon. It's not going to disappear entirely, but we end up with on and off mostly light rain for Northern Ireland and for much of Scotland, particularly towards western parts. Eastern and northern Scotland turning brighter with actually still some warmth here. The warmest air will be towards the south where we see some sunshine after those mist patches, 20 or 21 Celsius possible. Thursday then starts in a similar fashion with clear spells and some mist patches in the south, heavy rain across northern parts of the UK, and that rain really is going to accumulate across much of Northern Ireland and Scotland, particularly western Scotland. A rain warning in force, risk of localised flooding by the time we get to Friday.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
November the 26th, it is the next budget. Here was Rachel Reeves this week giving us a look ahead.
Months ahead, we will face further tests, with the choices to come made all the harder by harsh global headwinds and the long-term damage done to our country, which is becoming ever clearer. Our first year in power was about fixing the foundations. Our second must be about building a renewed economy for a renewed Britain.
If you'd like me to interpret that into normal English, it means there are tax rises coming in the budget, but this is leading to an exodus of wealth. This is the last up-to-date global migration map, and it shows where rich people go to and where they come from. The UAE globally has been the biggest beneficiary of wealthy people moving from all over the world to it. And the biggest loser, it's us, even bigger than China and other countries like that. Well, a poll out recently shows us that a quarter, 25% of Britain's wealthiest families are considering leaving the country amid the threat of further tax rises in November's budget. This is a disaster, Ron.
Absolutely. I mean, she's killed growth. She's already hiked taxes, sky-high borrowing, and she's got nothing to say, nothing to offer in terms of a route out from this economic disaster. It's a great shame, and I thought she was terribly robotic, actually, in that clip that you've just heard. You know, she's clearly following a line very, very closely.
The Treasury
orthodoxy is alive and well. And, of course, Torsten Bell, who's now been brought in and given supreme power over what happens in the budget, you know, formerly of the Resolution Foundation, which your viewers will have heard of already. And, you know, this is an organisation that only wants to put up taxes, believing that basically anyone who works hard is right for taxation. You know, whether it's your pension, whether it's your house, or indeed the farmers discovered whether it's their land, you know, it's all up for grabs.
It looks like it. And Joe, you know, if lots and lots and lots, and when we say wealthy, what I mean by wealthy is the highest taxpayers in the country.
Well, the survey you just mentioned is people who have got £250,000 investable money. And the report doesn't tell you how many people they spoke to, so it's not that sort of survey. But it also goes on to say that and it's in relation to the VAT on private school fees.
And we could get VAT on private health insurance next, or we don't know.
But what it does say is that those people have they've either remortgaged their house, or they've moved, or they've made sacrifices. In other words, they have altered their lifestyle in order to buy the things that they want, which in their case is private school, and presumably they would do the same for private health. The other thing,
the general point, and you saw the map that I showed you earlier.
Yes, that map. I don't know if that comes from the report that was published in June this year, that was widely trashed, because in actual fact the number of millionaires leaving Britain is fewer now than it was in 2021.
I think it's bigger than that. It's massive.
Well,
I know so many people in central London, so many people that are leaving. They're absolutely terrified of what will happen in the budget. They're fearful this government's vindictive. The big broad point is that if lots of wealthy high taxpayers leave, those on lower incomes pay more.
No, I get that. But the other thing that, as you know, Nigel, is that people who are very, very wealthy, they might be able to move, but their property and their portfolios can't move so easily. So that's the bigger question as to whether they take the property and other things out of the country.
I spoke to a self-made billionaire last week, council house guy, billionaire. He hasn't just moved; he's selling everything.
But what's true here is it's crystal clear. This isn't just affecting the billionaires and the millionaires.
No.
You know, Labour have made it very clear now that they do not intend to honour their manifesto promises here. You know, not only do they not mention the ID card, they're now open to breaking the promises they made to the people. And you know, it's
going to be a bleak old budget.
It's going to be really terrible for so many people who've worked hard all their lives, put into the system, and now they're going to get nothing out of it as a result of a Labour government.
For those that are wealthy, their home electricity bills and energy bills probably won't worry them, unless, of course, they're running a factory. The What the Farage moment today is that the International Energy Agency have published figures showing, yes, we do have a look at the graph, the highest industrial electricity price in the world at 26.6p per kilowatt hour, compared to 6.5p in the United States of America. This is an act of self-harm, Joe Phillips, on a scale that's hard to imagine.
It's all to do with the price, the wholesale price of gas.
Is it?
Yes.
So why don't we produce our own gas?
We wouldn't be able to. We would still have to import gas.
No, we wouldn't.
Yes, we would.
No, we wouldn't.
We, Ronald?
No, we wouldn't.
Well, because we've not, you know, the truth
because you're a net zero aficionado as well, of course.
Hang on. I mean, that's unfair.
I don't.
Labour's decision to scrap even what we were doing, and of course we could have done more, and we've said we believe we should do more, but Labour's decision to scrap new oil and gas in the North Sea has cost working people jobs. 1,000 jobs every single month are being lost.
I'm talking about price.
Yeah, but unlocking that would help supply, and of course that's driven up foreign gas imports. Now I know the wholesale price affects us regardless of what we...
Not on gas.
To an extent it still does.
Not on gas.
Because they could sell it elsewhere in the world. But, you know, the fact that 40% of our energy is being met by imports is really hitting us today.
I know.
That's putting the cost up.
The annual subsidy cost for renewables. For renewables is £26 billion a year.
Yeah, and you know the contracts for difference
But
are
it's
a problem.
got to happen. That, you know, if not, I'm not going to do an Andy Burnham and say not now. You know, we should have been doing this years ago.
But we should be decoupling.
So we should go on deindustrialising.
We should decouple.
Go on looking for renewable energy.
Do you know what?
We should decouple gas and electricity. The prices should.
We can do that, but if we produce our own gas, we can actually do it much more cheaply.
Yes. Well, this is my point.
Anyway,
this is my point.
Tell you what, it's another one of those issues on which the country is waking up. Next, we discuss Trump's big Gaza plan. Is it going to work? Benjamin Netanyahu there in the White House last night. It's a big, bold, ambitious plan. It involves Tony Blair. Is it going to work? All of that in just a moment.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point.
Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, the Israeli Prime Minister and Donald Trump last night in the White House putting together the Gaza plan for Gaza's future. And some say it could be called Gaza Largo. And this image.
Fear. Trump Gaza is finally here. Trump Gaza shining bright. Golden future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza.
Today, are you? thought we'd introduce it in a light-hearted tone, but it is a very serious subject. Now, here was Donald Trump last night introducing the plan.
To ensure the success of this effort, my plan calls for the creation of a new international oversight body, the Board of Peace, we call it, will be headed by a gentleman known as President Donald J. Trump of the United States.
So the deal, the plan is that the immediate ceasefire, the release of the hostages, the redevelopment of Gaza itself, Palestinian prisoner release in return, Gaza's de-radicalisation, Hamas's disarmament, and much, much more. I'm joined down the line by Danny Ayalon, former Israeli ambassador to the United States. Danny, welcome to the programme. And yeah, you know, it was great to see that there we have the Israeli Prime Minister, the American President, many Arab states supporting this initiative. And all of that's terrific and wonderful. But are Hamas going to agree?
Well, first of all, thank you, Nigel, for having me on your show. It's a real pleasure and honor. I would say, well, we have witnessed a major diplomatic coup for President Trump. I mean, it's just not only a political acumen and competence, it's real leadership. For him to bring together 22 Arab countries, plus other Muslim countries, behind one plan. And we know how much they bicker and how much they have this internal strifes before them. This is a major thing. And then, of course, Israel joined. And now we have to wait for Hamas. But Hamas is very much isolated now. And the President Trump said that if Hamas does not accept the plan, does not add its signature, then Israel would do what they need to do with the backing of the United States, which would really mean going all the way into Gaza. So they are really now in a bind. On the one hand, they have the pressure, the Israeli military pressure. They have now the diplomatic pressure, the isolation. And I think they have a real dilemma now. And we'll see, again, if they really are concerned about the people of Gaza, or just as radical as they are, as extremist as they are, they want to go all the way in, including risking the life of all the people. But, you know, life is nothing for them. They say they cherish death, not life. But I hope this time maybe some sense will come into them and we can get out of this war in Gaza, which we all hope to finish, because the people of Gaza do not deserve it. But they are also held hostage by this radical Islamist Hamas, which is no different than ISIS.
No, well, I have to say, that's a summation that I agree with very, very strongly. Just a final quick thought, Danny, on this. Isn't the problem here that we're dealing with an ideology? And even if they were to pretend to go along with this plan, they might not honour it.
Well, absolutely, Nigel. This is an ideology. You're absolutely right. And this is why, of course, the taste will be in the pudding. And according to what I see, the plan calls for a real tough security monitoring and verification of the implementation of this plan. First and foremost, getting the people or the leaders, the murderous leaders of Hamas out of Gaza. But the thing is, with ideology which is married with territory, this is the real danger to security, to world stability. We saw it with ISIS when, I mean, they have a very nefarious ideology, but right now it's not so acute because they don't have the territory that they gained. They lost it. The Nazis, Nigel, you know, when the Nazis had their territory with this ideology, they almost brought the end of the world. This is the same with Hamas and Gaza. So if Hamas is out of Gaza...
Let's hope, Danny. Let's hope, Danny. Let's hope that this holds and works and they agree, and I'm praying they do. Thank you for joining us. I thought it was a great analysis.
Very good. And it is very important that you get the agreement and the backing of the Arab countries, because that is not easy.
No, it's a big deal.
But it's interesting, isn't it, that as Netanyahu left the White House, he's already said he will not recognise a Palestinian state or any entity that allows the Palestinian people. So it's sort of dead in the water. And what Danny was just saying about Hamas, can you trust them if they say yes? You can't trust Netanyahu. And judging by Trump's, huge success by giving Putin the red carpet, who has been bombing Ukraine ever since.
Well, I think, hang on a second, on both cases, Trump is trying for peace. Isn't that the right thing to do?
Absolutely.
Oh, no,
I think, we all want to see an end to what has been an awful...
he might not succeed, but he's trying.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, this is a 20-point plan. There's lots of detail that needs to be really worked through. And, it's great that so many countries are now backing it. And it involves no involvement from Hamas going forward if this works. And, they are the people who have caused this problem. And, if they can be exercised from, the state of Palestine going forward, that will be a great
It's a big if. It's a big if. And Tony Blair, a peacemaker.
Yeah. Well, that's a very interesting...
Well, he's clearly got the support of Arab states. And, so then that's positive.
In global terms, Blair is more powerful, has more influence than he did when he was Prime Minister.
That's quite possibly.
He probably does, but, who's the chairman of this board?
Well,
Trump.
yes,
it's Trump and Blair, and there will be people, even though the Arab states have agreed to it thus far, there will be people saying this is another new colonialism.
Well, so the operation of this proposed transitional system needs to, again, be worked through.
Yeah.
But the sense that there are, big players, whether we like everything he stands for or not, big players like Tony Blair willing to put their names forward and, commit themselves, have skin in the game to making this work. Again, that is a great step forward, and we've got to hope for the best here, that we can bring peace to this part
very
of the
good.
Middle East.
Thank you as ever for joining me this evening for a very wide range of subjects. I'm joined in the studio by Jacob Rees-Mogg, who in a moment will be presenting State of the Nation. But what will he be talking about?
Well, your favourite subject, I hope, because it's you. I went to the Labour Party conference yesterday.
Did you?
I stood outside and I engaged with Labour delegates.
Good for you.
And I had some cards. It was with the Telegraph, and the cards had subjects on them. The favourite choice of card they most wanted to talk about was Nigel Farage, and that's what they've talked about all day today. And I discover that you are a time traveller, and you managed to belong to a society that ceased to exist 20 years before you were born, according to David Lammy.
Extraordinary.
But then he is the man who thought, what was it, that Henry VII came after Henry VIII, or some bit of genius like that.
That's true.
So I think there's an element of Lammy genius in thinking...
Yes, unkind people call him the village idiot. I would never go along with that sort of thing.
Well, you don't go for personal tax.
Exactly,
No,
exactly. So I'd never, ever even contemplate doing it. Jacob, thank you. Well, I suppose in a way I should be hugely flattered they're talking about me that much. But that is the end of my working day. Let's have a look first at the all-important weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Clear spells will remain by and large across England and Wales overnight, but it will be much cloudier further north across Scotland and Northern Ireland, with increasingly heavy and persistent rain arriving. That's because this next frontal system that moves in is more active than the weak fronts we've seen during the last couple of days. So soon enough, during the evening, heavy rain arrives across Northern Ireland into western Scotland, and it's going to persist throughout much of the night. But for much of England and Wales, there'll be some patchy cloud around, particularly towards the west, but in between, clear spells, lighter winds here, and so a similar night to previous nights, with temperatures falling into the single figures and some mist and fog forming, particularly south of the M4 corridor. That's what we wake up to on Wednesday, some patchy mist and fog. It will last for the first few hours of the day before eventually lifting. Not everyone will see the fog. There'll be some sunshine out there from the word go. Areas of cloud affecting parts of Wales into northern England. Rain just fringing upon Cumbria as we begin things, but it's wettest across western Scotland, Northern Ireland and northern Scotland first thing. Actually, the morning is the wettest period because the rain does tend to ease a little into the afternoon. It's not going to disappear entirely, but we end up with on and off mostly light rain for Northern Ireland and for much of Scotland, particularly towards western parts. Eastern and northern Scotland turning brighter, with actually still some warmth here. The warmest air will be towards the south, where we see some sunshine after those mist patches, 20 or 21 Celsius possible. Thursday then starts in a similar fashion with clear spells and some mist patches in the south, heavy rain across northern parts of the UK, and that rain really is going to accumulate across much of Northern Ireland and Scotland, particularly western Scotland. A rain warning in force, risk of localised flooding by the time we get to Friday.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show